So Jerome Powell had some pretty interesting remarks regarding the economy and potential rate cuts, and the US stock market wiped out $1.5 trillion yesterday alone. In today's video, we'll be discussing that. We'll be going over what Jerome Powell actually said, and we'll also discuss how this affects crypto and the Bitcoin price action. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So first, we can see that Bitcoin is still hovering around this same level. Not much is happening, and every single time that we seem to peak right around the 21-week exponential moving average, which is this green line, we get rejected. Now, we're also not seeing any kind of significant dumps either, so this is ultimately pretty positive for Bitcoin. Currently, at the time of recording this video, we can see that the pre-markets are green for stocks, so this could bode over well for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto industry. But what we really want to discuss today are some of Jerome Powell's remarks that he had at his speech yesterday. So first of all, he did talk about the fact that the tariff shock will push towards higher unemployment and higher inflation, which would not bode over well for rate cuts, which a lot of people are expecting at some of the next Fed meetings. The markets are still functioning, but we are seeing some deleveraging by hedge funds. Now, also, he did say that the overall acceptance is growing, but the debt concerns are still lingering, especially with tariffs. Specifically for the federal debt, he said that we are on an unsustainable path. Now, Jerome Powell also did talk about crypto, which is relatively positive. Let's hear what he had to say.
A legal framework for stable coins, which would have been a nice place to start. We were not successful. I think that the climate is changing and you're moving into sort of more mainstreaming of that whole sector. So Congress is again looking at, both the Senate and the House are looking at a legal framework for stable coins. You know, depending on what's in it, that's a good idea. We need that. There isn't one now. And stable coins are a digital product that could actually have fairly wide appeal and should contain consumer protections of the typical sorts and transparency, and that's what the Senate and the House are working on, so that's a positive thing. You know, we took a pretty conservative, and other bank regulators took an even more conservative perspective on the guidance and rules we imposed on banks. I think there'll be some loosening of that, and I think we'll try to do it in a way that preserves safety and soundness, but that, you know, permits and fosters appropriate innovation, that does so in a way that, again, doesn't put consumers at risk in ways they don't understand or make banks less safe and sound.
Overall, pretty positive. We know that stablecoins have been a huge theme in crypto, especially for this recent bull market. I mean, we also have Trump's World Liberty Financial that launched their own stablecoin, and the stablecoin space continues to expand. So ultimately, when Jerome Powell comes out and says that there should be some better legal framework for stablecoins, it's positive for the space. And also, loosening the bank rules for crypto is super positive because, as we know, retail doesn't always want to use centralized exchanges or decentralized exchanges for that matter to get access to crypto. So if they soften their stance on the bank rules for crypto, this could allow banks to actually offer crypto directly through their own services, and naturally this would allow retail to flock into the space without getting onboarded by the exchanges that we are used to. Now, speaking of exchanges that we're used to, as you guys know, I currently use Weeks to trade the crypto market, and currently they have a trading competition where you can literally win a Ferrari based on how much you trade on Weeks. There's of course a ton of other bonuses, which include a 20% deposit bonus. That means that if you deposit $1,000 into your Weeks account, you get $200 back for free, and this is also up to $2,000. So the max here is that if you were to deposit $10,000 into your Weeks account for trading as you normally would, you would get $2,000 back for trading. You can even earn up to $28,000 in bonuses depending on how much you trade the crypto markets. This is my favorite exchange, so if you want to sign up, it's the first link in my description down below, and all you need is an email and a password to sign up. Now, looking at Bitcoin on the topic of crypto, what we can see here is that the longs and the shorts are relatively balanced on this 30-day time frame. There is just over $8.7 billion in shorts, but also on the long side, a lot of people are longing the market, just under 7.75 billion longs. So it's pretty balanced here, which normally doesn't give us the best potential edge to trade this market. But if we want to look at Bitcoin once again, we have to look at these key levels. We're seeing quite a bit of resistance here, despite the fact that the stock market wiped out over $1.5 trillion yesterday. So All things considered, right now, Bitcoin is holding up strong, but you won't hear me come out and say that Bitcoin is just going to explode because we're seeing a little bit of outperformance in the short term. Now, if we look at the drawings that I have on this chart, you can see that we did break out from this diagonal trend line, and the target for this move, if we are to break past $85,000, would be all the way up here to 87.5K. Now, that is the most important level, as we've been talking about the channel over and over again. Basically, if we reclaim this level, I do think that Bitcoin could be going much higher, but until we get that confirmation, I would not be convinced. Right now, it's looking like we're trying to go for a move higher, but we can see that the highest wick in the past few days was right around $86,460. So very important level, lots of moving averages going into this level, a previous area of support. If we can break above here, hold it as support, Bitcoin would be moving higher. But ultimately, what you really want to look for is a solid stock market so Bitcoin can go ahead and move higher. And since we just touched on the stock market liquidations, it's only fair to look at crypto. There was around $240 million worth of liquidations, which is nowhere near as significant as the stock market because Bitcoin has been relatively stable here. So I wouldn't be overly aggressive with trading because we need to see how things develop. And something else that you really need to consider here before you make any aggressive moves is that Jerome Powell actually came out and talked about Trump's tariffs briefly, and he said that they are larger than anticipated and they may put the central bank in a challenging situation not seen in decades.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
Ultimately, this is not what we want to hear. But in the meantime, we have legendary investor Jerome Powell that came out and talked about Bitcoin versus the global M2 chart. Here is the update. As we can see, he thinks it's only a matter of time before Bitcoin explodes because the global M2 has already exploded and it's discussed as having this lagging effect. So what we can see here is that Bitcoin looks to be bottoming out. But ultimately, I think it's not just a matter of the M2. It'll likely be a lot of other factors, specifically with the macro. But talking about macro here, we do know that it should be relatively calm for this week and the next week as well. As we can see, not much is going on in terms of macro. And then there's tech earnings that start next Tuesday, April 22nd. We have Google on April 24th, and we have Apple on May 1st. The only caveat here, and I completely agree with this assessment, are the speeches, interviews, and surprises from Trump, Lutnick, and Besant, and staying sharp day in, day out. Completely agree with this. You need to be managing your positions accordingly because sometimes these guys will say something and it will just absolutely pump the markets, or we could see a catastrophic dump. But right now, Bitcoin still needs to reclaim these very important levels that we've been discussing, and so far we are breaking out of this diagonal trend line. Let's see if we can hold above here and target this level and take it as we go. And that sums up today's first video. I will make sure to keep you updated as things develop. Again, if you want to trade this market, make sure you click the first link in my description down below, bringing you directly to Weeks, one of the top exchanges that I've been using, and they have a ton of bonuses. I will try to upload twice per day every now and then, and today will be one of those days, so you can expect another video from me today. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one.